Welcome back to the On Time, On Budget podcast, where we break down the tools, techniques, and strategies that help us manage work smarter. I'm your host, John Shoemaker, and today we're going to talk about stakeholders, who they are, why they matter, and why so many projects struggle simply because stakeholder issues were not addressed early enough or thoroughly enough. If projects were only about schedules, budgets, and tasks, managing them would be relatively easy. What makes projects difficult is people, and stakeholders are at the center of that challenge. A stakeholder is anyone who has a vested interest in the outcome of the project. Their interest exists because the project impacts them in some way. For some stakeholders, the impact is positive. For others, it may be negative. Either way, their needs, expectations, and concerns matter. It's also important to remember that stakeholders don't just get impacted by projects. They can impact projects. For that reason, project managers must distinguish between key stakeholders and other stakeholders. Key stakeholders are those who can significantly influence the project's success or failure. Earning and maintaining their trust and support is not optional, it's essential. Managing stakeholders generally involves 4 activities: identifying stakeholders, analyzing their needs and requirements, prioritizing stakeholders, managing stakeholder relationships throughout the project. Let's look briefly at each of these. Stakeholder identification should begin as early as possible, ideally during project initiation. For some projects, the number of stakeholders can be enormous. A project to build a nuclear power plant, for example, might have millions of stakeholders. While it's not possible to analyze all of them individually, it is critical to identify all key stakeholders or stakeholder groups. Start with stakeholders common to most projects, such as sponsors, customers, team members, and functional managers. Then look at the project scope. That often reveals additional stakeholders who may not be obvious at first. Talking with the sponsor, team members, and already identified stakeholders can also help uncover others you might otherwise overlook. As part of this process, many project managers develop a stakeholder register, which captures information about each stakeholder, their interests, their role, and their potential influence on the project. Once stakeholders are identified, the next step is to understand where they stand. Who supports the project and why? Who may be less than fully supportive and why? Knowing the why matters. I once worked on a project that initially had strong support from the IT director. That support was lost when the project manager decided to outsource part of the IT work, without discussing it first. Better communication could have avoided that problem. Stakeholder needs, wants, expectations, and concerns must then be translated into project requirements. These requirements ultimately become the project's key success criteria. Stakeholder analysis often reveals conflicting expectations. Different stakeholders may want different outcomes, making consensus difficult. When consensus cannot be reached, the project manager, working with the sponsor, must decide whose needs take priority. One common tool for doing this is the power interest grid, which helps identify stakeholders with high power and high interest. These are the stakeholders who can truly make or break a project. Managing these relationships requires strong communication and negotiation skills. Stakeholder management has 2 primary goals. First, to build and maintain buy-in among key stakeholders. Second, to prevent misunderstandings that can derail the project later.
Many projects run into trouble because stakeholder disagreements are dismissed early on as small details that can be worked out later.
Too often, those small details turn out to be fundamental disagreements about the project's goals, design, or scope. The construction of Safeco Field, now T-Mobile Park, in Seattle, is a well-known example. The project exceeded its original estimate by $100 million. Largely due to disagreements among key stakeholders about what costs were truly required to complete the project as intended. Better communication up front may not have eliminated the problem, but it likely would have reduced it. According to a survey published in PM Network, 55% of project managers believe effective stakeholder communication is the single most critical factor in project success. That statistic should get your attention. Projects succeed or fail largely because of how well stakeholders are managed. Identifying them early, understanding their needs, prioritizing their influence, and communicating consistently
can prevent conflicts that no schedule or budget adjustment can fix later. Thanks for watching the On Time, On Budget podcast. If you found this episode helpful, don't forget to subscribe, share it with your team, and drop us a review. If you would like a copy of my book, On Time, On Budget, use the QR code on the screen. It will take you to Amazon where you can purchase a copy. Until next time, keep managing smarter, not harder.